Hey there, fourth grade. This is Mr. Campbell. Today we're going to be working on page 309. This is going to be lesson 8.5. Use benchmarks to compare fractions. And now today it's going to say I can use benchmarks, area models, and number lines to compare fractions. All right, so what we mean by that is we are going to look at some different types of fractions and then put in our greater than, less than, or equal to sign in those different ones. All right, so I'm going to ask you right now actually to grab your pencil and we're going to go ahead and color in a couple of different parts here. All right, we've got three different ones that we're going to do. So my first one is 1/4. So this first one right here, we're going to color in 1/4. And the way that I do that is I'm going to look at the whole thing. I'm going to cut it in half to the best of my ability. Go ahead and do this with me right now. All right. And then I'm going to cut each of those halves in half as well. All right. Now, when I do that, look at what I end up with. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, let me ask you, are these all perfectly equal? They are not, right? In a perfect world, they would be, but we just want to get them close to being about the same, all right? So I cut it into fourths because that's what my denominator was, all right? And next, we're going to go ahead and shade in one of those fourths. So go ahead and shade in one of those fourths, all right? Next, it asks us to do 1/2. So the denominator is 2, so I'm going to cut this whole middle one in half. I'm going to cut it right there. And then how much do I want to shade? Well, it says 1, right? So I'm going to shade in one of these. And again, you should be doing this with me right now in your book as well. Again, on page 309. All right. And then our last one is 3/4. Well, our denominator is fourths, and we already did that one. So I can just copy what I did up here, right? I cut it in half, and then each of those halves get cut in half. And this time, though, it tells us to color in 3 out of 4. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hey, I noticed something about these three different ones, and I'm going to go over my lines just a little bit darker. What do you notice? Do you see the thing that I notice right now when I'm looking at these three different fractions? It's kind of like a stair step, isn't it? Yeah, I could make one more and make it go all the way, and then it would be a perfect stair step. But what I notice is my 1/2, I didn't cut into fourths, right? But if this is 1/2, what would be the equivalent fraction if I wanted fourths? What would be my equivalent fraction? We talked about that last time. Well, what that means is I would need to take this and cut it into 4 equal parts. When I do that, how many do I have shaded? 1, 2. The reason we don't write 2/4 is because 1/2 is the simplified version. But these are benchmark fractions right here. 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4. Because if something is bigger than 3/4, then it's almost 1. If something is less than 1/4, then that means it's closer to 0. And then 1/2 tells us kind of where other ones will fall. And that's what we're going to be doing as we look at different ones today. But before we get into that, let me go ahead and grab my whiteboard real quick. All right? Because I want you to answer a couple of different questions for me. All right? Now, when we do comparison, I want to make sure that we all remember what comparing is. All right? So if I have 3 and I have 7, all right? And in the middle here, I'm going to put a big circle. Do you remember these from before? It's not a 0. It's a big circle. All right? And I either need to put greater than, less than, or equal to inside of here. All right? And do you remember the way that we remember how to do that? Well, let me give you a quick hint because I'm going to put in some teeth here, right? And maybe you've heard your teachers talk about it before like this, that these are alligators, and alligators always like to eat whatever is the biggest one, right? So my alligator is going to go for the bigger number, and then my equal is because an alligator would look this way, and then it would look this way, and then it's just looking back and forth. All right. So what am I going to put here in the middle? Greater than, less than, or equal to. Well, 3 is smaller than 7, so we would put our less than, right? And just to also clarify real quick, because sometimes students get kind of hung up on like, well, I don't remember what these are actually called, right? Whenever we read anything, we always read left to right, right? So when I read that, I would say 3 is blank, than 7, right? 3 is something than 7. And if it's bigger, then we would say it's greater than, which is this one right here. Like that would be greater than the other number. Or I would say 3 is less than because it's going over here. Okay. We read this number sentence left to right just like we read any other piece of information. All right. Well, today we're going to be talking about some different fractions. All right. And so when we talk about different fractions, we can compare them the exact same way. So if I had, here's my big circle, if I have 1/4 and then over here I have 3/4, where would my alligator want to go? Would it want to go to the 1/4 or the 3/4? Well, our benchmark fractions actually help us out when we're trying to figure those types of things out. But just for right now, just for this example, I'm going to go ahead and shade these in. Which would my alligator want to go for? It would want to go for this one over here because it's got more, right? So we would say 1/4 is less than 3/4. And that is true. We can see it right here. But let's go ahead and take a look on page 310. What does this look like in our book? All right, so here we are on page 310, and we're going to read up here at the top. So let me zoom in a little bit for us. All right, perfect. It says Robert needs 3/8 stick of butter to make muffins and 2/3 stick of butter to make cookies. Which recipe uses more butter? All right, so that's what we're asking here. And it says you can use benchmark fractions to compare fractions. Benchmark fractions are commonly used fractions like 1/4, 1/3, 1/2, 2/3, and 3/4. All right. So in box B, it says compare 3/8 to the benchmark fraction of 1/2. So here's 1/2. And down here, we've got our eighths 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 of them are colored in. Which is greater? Well, the 1/2 is greater. So 3/8 is less than 1/2. All right. Come on over here to our cookies. It says compare 2/3 to the benchmark fraction of 1/2. So here I've got my 1/2. 1 out of 2 is colored in. Down here, we took our butter and cut it into 1, 2, 3. We colored in 2 of them. Which is bigger? The 2/3 is actually bigger, right? Because we've got 2 of those, so it went past there. So what does that mean? Well, that means 2/3 is greater than 1/2. So which one of these two recipes requires more butter? Well, we would know that cookies, because 2/3 is bigger than 1/2, and 3/8 is less than 1/2, which means that 3/8 must be less than 2/3. Okay? And that's all they wrote down here. 3/8 is less than 1/2, 2/3 is bigger than 1/2, so 3/8 is less than 2/3. So cookies use more butter. All right. Well, let's go ahead and turn to the next page here. All right. For problems 3 through 4. All right. So this is on page 311. So page 311. All right. And we're going to go ahead and look at our two numbers here. So we've got 2/6 and we've got 4/5. Excuse me. Now, when I do this, I'm going to ask that same question about our different fractions. All right. So let me grab my handy dandy whiteboard here. All right. And let's use our 1/2 as our indicator. All right. Here's my 1/2. Now I can say, all right, well, if I have a fraction and it is 2/6, 1, 2. There's 2/6. Well, 2/6 is less than 1/2, right? Makes sense. Okay. Well, now let's compare 4/5. Ugh, got kind of smudgy there, huh? Grab a different marker. All right. Let's compare our 4/5. So here I've got the same thing. I'm going to divide it into fifths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm going to shade in 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Which is bigger, 1/2 or 4/5? 4/5 is greater than 1/2. All right. Well, if 4/5 is greater than 1/2 and 2/6 is less than 1/2, you guessed it. We're going to say 2/6 is less than 4/5. All right. Ooh, this next one, mighty tricky. It is mighty tricky. On this one right here, I see that I've got 11/12. Well, that is really close to being the whole thing, right? Because if I were to draw a quick picture, all right, so here's my box, and I'm going to do 12ths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sorry, not the greatest drawing in the world, but you get the idea, right? So if I've got all of these, I'm almost completely colored in, right? There's just one space that's left. But check out this next one. It says that I have 9/8. 9/8. Check out what that means. All right. So 9/8. So if I cut this into fourths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what my denominator was, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I needed to draw another one the exact same way because I need one more box. 9/8 is greater than 1. And I know that because my denominator is smaller than the numerator. Anytime that happens, this is bigger than 1. When my numerator is bigger than the denominator, it's going to be greater than 1. So even though 11/12 was super close to being all the way filled, 9/8 is actually bigger because the numerator is greater than 1. So what does that mean? Well, that means 11/12 is less than 9/8. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and help you out with number 5. It says circle the fractions that are less than 1/2. The way that we know what 1/2 is that the top number is half of the bottom number. So our numerator is half of the denominator. So let's check this out real quick. What does that mean? Well, that means that I've got 1/2. I've got 2/4. I've got 3/6. I've got 4/8. Do you notice that the bottom number, you would have to take the top number and times it by 2 to get your denominator? All right. So if these are my benchmarks here, so then I would have 5/10 and 6/12. All right. These are all 1/2. They're all the same. So let's take a look up here. Well, I just told you that if there is a number that has a larger numerator than denominator, that it's bigger than 1. So is that going to be less than 1/2? No. Cross it off. 1/4. Well, here's my fourth. Is 1/4 less than 2/4? It sure is. 1/5. Uh-oh. Well, that would be like 2/10, right? Well, yeah, that's going to be less. 2/3. 2/3. Well, that's like saying 4/6. And here's my 6. That's less, or that's greater, right? 4/6 would be greater than my 3/6. 2/12. Well, if I've got 2/12, that's less than my 6/12, right? So I'd circle that one. 51/100. Well, what's half of 100? Half of 100 is 50, and this is 51. That's one more. So nope, not going to happen. Those would be my 3 that are less than 1/2. All right. Now, our last one. Circle the fractions that are greater than 1. Greater than 1. Then that means that our numerator is bigger than the denominator. I'm going to have you pause your video. Try number 6 on your own right now. All right, see if you can solve that one. Which one of these fractions are greater than 1? The numerator is bigger than the denominator. All right, I hope you paused your video and did this. If not, do it right now. All right, 99 is smaller than 100, so that is not greater than 1. 6 is bigger than 5, so that is greater than 1. 7 is smaller than 8, so that is not greater than 1. 14 is bigger than 8, so that is greater than 1. 11 is bigger than 10, so that is greater than 1. 11 is less than 12, so that is not greater than 1. All right. You can do the same thing that we just did up there for the rest of your different ones down here. All right. Use those benchmark fractions to be able to compare these different types of fractions. All right. Go ahead and draw them out if you need to. Grab some paper. Grab some whiteboard if you need to. But go ahead and take a look at those different ones. All right. So when I see one last thing, I just want to point out fractions closer to 0 than to 1. That means that they're going to be smaller. They're less than 1/2. All right. So there you go. That is what we've got for today. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and we will see you next time.